Welcome into TYT's The Conversation. It is your host, Adrienne Lawrence. And today I have for you two senior health reporters for Insider, Anna Medaris-Miller and Julia Naftulin. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so Anna and Julia, there are patients right now calling out medical gaslighting. What is this about, Julia?
So yes, this is a term that it describes when medical professionals are making a patient believe that their symptoms are all in their head. It's a term you might have heard before in a more interpersonal relationship setting, whether it's like a partner gaslighting or a family member. However, it can also occur in a medical setting, which could mean a healthcare provider dismissing a person's symptoms, denying certain tests or treatments, or ultimately misdiagnosing them. And it's something that primarily affects women, people of color, young people, and those with obesity.
Wow, all right. So it seems like it's something that's very scary, that when you know or sense something's going on with your body and you go to a medical care provider and this individual is essentially telling you you're not experiencing what you're experiencing. And I know that patients are really sharing their stories of these years-long medical misdiagnosis. Anna, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are coming forward for a lot of reasons. I mean, this is nothing new, sadly, and in some ways we've made a lot of progress since way back when women were diagnosed with hysteria, basically being told that anything was in their heads or due to hormones. And we've moved away from that, but now, especially in the age of social media, and people are sharing their stories, and it's taking off because other people relate to that. They have their own stories to share, and people are getting angry about it, as they should.
Rightly so. And I definitely think that social media plays a driver in this, like you said, because you can connect with more people sharing their stories, things going viral, that it creates a platform that it seems to go further than that WMD or WebMD kind of arena where you can just go ahead and try to look things up. But it's more of having that almost one-on-one conversation, or at least know that you're not the only one experiencing it. And so, Julia, when it comes to fully understanding the breadth of medical gaslighting, what are some of the things that it could include?
Yeah, so I think, you bring up a great point, like people talking about this is really bringing to light that this is happening to a lot of folks. I think a great example that's currently in the news is that Serena Williams, she penned an essay in Elle magazine recently talking about her own experience having, telling doctors and nurses after she gave birth C-section that she was experiencing pain. And she asked for certain pain medication and certain tests and was denied them first. So I think that's one example, saying you have certain types of pain and asking for treatment for something and being denied that multiple times. Williams talks about that in her essay, and ultimately talked about how she requested the lung test that detected that she had potentially fatal blood clots. So it's an issue that affects a lot of folks, and also others have talked about being misdiagnosed with the wrong condition. And I know Anna's interviewed some of those people.
Yes, and it sounds like this is something that a lot of women primarily experience, but also, as I understand, the research shows that Black people are likely to experience this at higher levels, or it's just more prevalent. And I'm wondering, Anna, do you have any idea why?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a systemic issue. Doctors live in our society and they're subject to these biases. There's been research that shows, medical students rate Black people's pain as less than white people, and that in turn affects how they actually treat those patients, and they might underprescribe pain medications, for example. And I'd like to think that these medical students and doctors are not outwardly thinking in their head that somebody's pain is less than the others, but these are all systemic cultural issues that we have to deal with. And fortunately, some medical schools are starting to change that, but it's going to take a long time in a lot of these conversations.
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially if something like this is going to happen to Serena Williams, who you can't think maybe the hospital thinks she can't afford it. So it's a matter of the fact that they just simply didn't want to believe her. They wanted to think that this individual who speaks multiple languages and is at the top of her game in terms of tennis, but also is just an extremely well-traveled and well-educated individual, has no idea what she's experiencing or what she knows about her body. And that can be very scary, especially if you're a Black person, in part because we have to code switch, we have to jump through hoops, especially this angry Black woman. So I can't imagine what she went through in trying to save her own life and conveying this to medical professionals. And so also, Julia, I know you had mentioned that Anna has interviewed several other people. Anna, are there any other stories that you would like to bring to light?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, sadly. But I think another population we hear a lot about are people in bigger bodies and how they're also subject to the stigma that what you look like reflects your actual health. And I've heard so many stories of people for years and years going with different complaints to their doctors, and they just are told over and over again, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And sometimes they do it, and guess what? The cancer is still there. So it's really disturbing and something, again, we still need to talk about and just make medical professionals aware of, where they're coming from and where their patients might be coming from. And as you said, like trusting that a patient knows their body in a way that the doctor never can.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that that's something that I would at least recommend to people. If you know there's something wrong with your body, don't just take that no that you may get from a medical professional and get a second opinion or push harder and push back. And that's very difficult for some of us, especially people of color, particularly Black people, where we are stigmatized. I have an understanding that there are things written in our notes, like patient may be difficult and whatnot, and we are already thought to be violent and all of these negative stereotypes that impede our availability to get good health care. So the idea of pushing back can be very scary and upsetting. Have either of you, Julia or Anna, run into a situation where somebody did push back just to figure out that it didn't go well for them?
Oh, interesting. I just published a story today where it was a 20-year-old man, young man, which is another kind of category that I do think suffers from this a little bit more, is just younger people. There's a power dynamic with doctors, no matter who you are, but especially the younger you are. And if you're experiencing something like this man was, which ended up being a very serious stroke, we all have, and doctors are subject to this too, the assumption that stroke only happens to older people. And so they think that young people are maybe on drugs. I've heard about them thinking that somebody's drunk. They kind of go through all of these other kind of typical youth issues before they come to the fact that maybe this person is having a brain hemorrhage. It took a lot of different family members going back to the hospital, going back, pushing the doctors for more. And he got a lot of false diagnoses before they actually figured out what happened. And at that point, it was too late to conduct the surgery that he needed to be able to live the life that he used to.
Wow. And so in situations like this, the lawyer in me automatically thinks, I want to file a malpractice lawsuit. I need in some way to ensure that this does not happen again, and I need someone to be held accountable because I went to you for care, I explained my symptoms, and your behavior fell below the standard of care. Julia, do you happen to know, are you seeing any malpractice lawsuits? Is there any way to curb this kind of behavior from doctors?
So most of the folks that we've spoken to haven't sued a hospital or a provider. A lot of these folks just want to share their stories and kind of be advocates so this doesn't happen to other folks, like you said, and kind of encourage others to speak up as well. But there are, medical malpractice lawyers if that's a route you want to take. And I believe Anna's interviewed someone who actually went this route as well. But there are other options. I think, Anna brought up the power dynamic with young folks and doctors. And I think that the fact, remembering that a lot of medical literature focuses on white men and how symptoms occur in them, and just having, remembering that when you go to the doctor and thinking, I I should speak up, feel empowered to speak up and realize that it is a systemic issue and you should always use your gut and your intuition. I think that's number one.
Absolutely. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Anna?
Yeah, I think just reiterating, bringing, if you're in a situation that you can be prepared, maybe it's not an emergency situation, but if you can bring a trusted loved one with you to the doctor, who maybe is not in a marginalized group, who can speak up on your behalf or can at least listen to the doctor, take notes, maybe record. That's good practice, no matter what your condition is. And you're going to be overwhelmed when you go to the doctor and you feel like they're not going to believe them. So if you can have an advocate by your side, even better.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, this thought that I need to bring a middle-aged white male with me everywhere just so people will treat me fairly. But unfortunately, that's how a lot of our society rolls. But I really do appreciate all of the journalism you all are doing, and especially uplifting this issue when it comes to medical gaslighting. And so we only have a little less than a minute left, but I guess what is next in terms of the radar that you all may be researching as senior health reporters for Insider?
So I'm currently working as we get closer to the Roe versus Wade Supreme Court decision. I'm starting to see how things are affecting abortion on the ground in these states where trigger laws are starting to come up. And if Roe versus Wade is overturned, which a lot of folks are anticipating, abortion could really be in jeopardy in a lot of different states going forward. So that's something I'm looking at right now.
All right, Anna.
Yeah, I'm looking more at kind of the different months in American Women's Health Month and Stroke Month, and I like to feature kind of different conditions that come up. So young women with stroke who've been ignored has been one of my areas of focus.
All right, thank you so much for the work that you do. That's senior health reporters for Insider, Anna Medaris-Miller and Julia Naftulin. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.